Alright, let's dive into the drama swirling around the G20 Summit in Johannesburg. Yes, the first time this massive meeting's ever landed on African soil. The city is buzzing with anticipation, and the world's eyes are fixed on South Africa as it steps into the global spotlight. For months, officials have been preparing for this historic moment, hoping to showcase not just Johannesburg's vibrant culture, but also Africa's growing influence on the world stage. The stakes are high, and expectations even higher, as leaders from the world's largest economies gather to tackle some of the planet's most pressing issues. But there's a huge elephant in the room, one that's impossible to ignore. The United States, a country that's usually front and center at these summits, is basically sitting this one out. The absence is glaring, with the empty seat and the missing American voice casting a long shadow over the proceedings. Delegates and journalists alike are left whispering in the hallways, wondering what this means for the future of global cooperation. So, what's going on? President Trump's White House has said, loud and clear, the US won't be taking part in any official G20 talks or negotiations this year. This isn't just a diplomatic snub, it's a bold statement that's sending shockwaves through the international community. The administration's decision has left allies confused, rivals emboldened, and everyone else scrambling to adjust their strategies. For a country that's long prided itself on leading the global agenda, this move is nothing short of unprecedented. Why? Trump claims he's protesting what he calls the persecution of South Africa's white Afrikaner minority, a claim that's been flat-out rejected as misinformation by the South African government and pretty much everyone else. South African officials have gone on record, calling the allegations baseless and politically motivated. Meanwhile, activists and local leaders are frustrated, saying the US is using a false narrative to justify its absence. The controversy has sparked protests and heated debates, both in South Africa and abroad, about race, history, and the real motivations behind America's boycott. The administration's also called South Africa anti-American because of its close ties with China, Russia, and Iran. Bit tense, isn't it? These alliances have been growing stronger in recent years, with South Africa playing a key role in the BRICS bloc and deepening its economic and political partnerships with countries that often challenge US interests. For Washington, this is more than just a diplomatic disagreement. It's a sign of shifting global power dynamics, and it's making the US increasingly wary of South Africa's intentions on the world stage. Now, here's where it gets messier. Just before the summit, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa told the press that the US had a change of mind and would participate in some way. This announcement sent a ripple of excitement through the summit, with many hoping it signaled a last-minute breakthrough. Ramaphosa, eager to avoid a diplomatic disaster, tried to reassure the world that the US would not abandon its responsibilities. But as the hours ticked by, it became clear that things were not as simple as they seemed. But the White House fired back, calling it fake news, and even accused Ramaphosa of running his mouth. The back and forth quickly turned ugly, with both sides trading barbs in the media. The US accused South Africa of spreading misinformation, while South African officials insisted they were simply relaying what they'd been told. The confusion only added to the sense of chaos, leaving other G20 members unsure who to believe or what to expect next. In reality, the only American at the event is the acting ambassador in South Africa, Mark D. Dillard. And he's just there for the ceremonial handover, not the real negotiations. Dillard's presence is purely symbolic, a reminder of the US's formal obligations but not its active engagement. He's not authorized to make deals, sign agreements, or even participate in the closed-door sessions where the real decisions are made. For many, it's a clear sign that Washington is sending a message. We're here because we have to be, not because we want to be. And that's another twist. The US is supposed to take over the G20 presidency from South Africa for next year's summit in Florida. This handover is a big deal. It's a tradition that symbolizes continuity and cooperation among the world's leading economies. But with the US barely showing up, the whole process is now shrouded in uncertainty. Will the US step up and lead, or will this be the start of a new era where American leadership is no longer guaranteed? But Ramaphosa's making it clear. He won't hand over the leadership to just an acting ambassador. His words, "I don't want to hand over to an empty chair, but the empty chair will be there." Ouch. The statement stings, highlighting the frustration and disappointment felt by many in the international community. It's a diplomatic snub that could have lasting consequences, not just for the G20, but for US-Africa relations as a whole. It's not just the US skipping out though. Russia's Putin isn't coming because he's got an ICC arrest warrant hanging over him, making travel risky and politically explosive. The absence of such a major player only adds to the sense that this year's summit is anything but business, as usual. With two of the world's most powerful leaders missing, the G20's ability to reach meaningful agreements is seriously in doubt, and China's Xi Jinping is sending his premier instead. While the Chinese delegation is still large and influential, the absence of Xi himself is a clear signal that Beijing is keeping its options open. Some analysts see this as a strategic move, allowing China to observe the chaos from a distance while still maintaining a seat at the table. Others worry it's a sign that the world's major powers are drifting further apart, making global cooperation harder than ever. Even Argentina's president is staying away in solidarity with Trump. This unexpected alliance has raised eyebrows, with some wondering if it signals a new bloc of countries willing to challenge the traditional G20 order. The absence of so many key leaders is unprecedented, and it's forcing everyone else to rethink how these summits work, and whether they can still deliver results. Meanwhile, South Africa's pushing ahead, focusing on climate change, easing debt, and making sure the voices of developing countries are heard. Despite the drama, local organizers are determined to keep the spotlight on issues that matter most to the global South. Climate activists have taken to the streets, demanding urgent action, while government officials are working overtime to secure commitments on debt relief and sustainable development, and tackling inequality, issues that matter to developing countries. For many African nations, this summit is a rare chance to put their priorities front and center, and they're not letting the absence of a few world leaders slow them down. Panels and workshops are buzzing with ideas, and there's a real sense of urgency in the air. The hope is that, even without full participation, some progress can still be made on the issues that affect billions of people. But with the US blocking negotiations, any final agreement will be a real uphill battle. Diplomats are working late into the night, trying to find common ground, but the lack of American leadership is making everything harder. Some fear that without the US at the table, the G20 could fracture, with smaller groups of countries striking their own deals and leaving others behind. So, what's next for the G20? With this much tension, it's anyone's guess. Will the group find a way to move forward, or is this the beginning of the end for the G20 as we know it? The world is watching closely, waiting to see if compromise is still possible in an era of growing division and distrust. But one thing's clear, this summit's making history, for all the wrong reasons. The drama, the walkouts, the empty seats, these will be remembered long after the final speeches are given. Whether this marks a turning point for global diplomacy, or just another chapter in a long saga of international disputes, only time will tell. For now, Johannesburg stands as a symbol of both hope and uncertainty, as the world's leaders struggle to find common ground in a rapidly changing world.